Hi, this is Mr. Creepypasta,
And this is Fargosis16.
and I'm not sure what you're gonna call this series yet.
I don't know either. Oh, you want to make this a series?
I don't
Like,
know.
I wasn't sure if you
Are we doing
want
this
to.
as a series? I figured this would be episode one, and you want to see how it goes, and hopefully this will
Oh my
continue.
god, I totally wanted to do a series. I just didn't think you'd be okay with that.
I'm here for episode one then, and then
Oh,
we'll
okay,
see
this
what
is
happens in the future.
episode... Yeah, let's see what happens. But anyway, this is episode 1 of Creepypasta Review, and now it's this thing. I don't know, I'll come up with a title later. Uh,
And today we're
alright,
gonna be doing reviewing. Well, I guess yeah, reviewing Jeff the Killer. Yeah?
yeah. Okay, so, let's just open up with our general opinions. How about you first?
Okay. Well, my general opinion of it is that I would say that it's not a very well written story. But I would say that nonetheless that doesn't make it a bad story for what it is. I like Jeff the Killer.
I do not like Jeff the Killer. I know I'm going to get so much hate for this. I absolutely do not like this story. Most of my problems lie within about, I'd say, the first, maybe third of the story, or the first half. I can't remember how the story is set up completely, but I kind of like the last half, but there are a lot of details about this I really don't like.
Right.
But I can kind of see why people like it, so...
I get you. Like, because we're gonna go into the writing here, so might as well just, like, jump right into it.
Spoilers in case you're one of the 5 people who hasn't read this story by now.
Like, okay, I can see what you're saying. There's a lot of I wouldn't say plot hole as much as it is just there's a lot of misunderstanding on how things work with the story, especially like for the first like act or the first 2/3 of the story.
This person obviously doesn't have a lot of life experience, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, like the police officers for one passed judgment on Lou. Immediately from the get-go.
Kids running around with guns, which I mean, I know there's gun violence in schools, but I don't know. I feel like it was overplayed in this.
I completely agree with you there. And this is the thing that actually gets to me. It's not even just that the gun violence in that one, but the fact that these guys, well, the way that I always envisioned it was that they had to have been maybe about like 16, 17 years old. In the original story, I want to say that Jeff was supposed to be 12.
That's what I always thought that they were like 12, and then like the bullies were maybe like 14, 15. I don't know.
Yeah, well, see, again, like that seems incredibly young to be like carrying around guns or doing whatever, or, you know, carrying around knives or something. But I don't know. I don't live in inner city, even though this is supposed to be a nice neighborhood that Jeff moved.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like some rich people neighborhood,
Yeah.
And yet we have these teenagers going around murdering each other. Well, they intended to murder Jeff.
Yeah. And I mean, there's numerous different writing points in the story that create problems. It switches from first person to third person a lot. The writing for a lot of characters, even like the child at the very beginning, he was written out almost like he is an author himself when he's supposed to be like a really young little kid, who's telling the story about what happens and just.
Oh, I always thought as someone looking back at some experience that they had as a kid and then connecting it to some news story or something.
You mean like the whole story itself is that like?
Like, no, I mean, like, in the beginning, it's not the little kid writing this, it's someone looking back as to some experience they had as a little kid where Jeff apparently tried to murder them.
Oh, well, I guess I could see that. Actually hadn't considered it that way. So that might actually be the actual intended purpose or how it was written to be. But because I know like it's supposed to be like a news story taken, but I would assume even when like I did it for my channel, I had asked who was it? Monk to do I think Creepy Monk to do the voice of the kid in the beginning, because I always envisioned him to be like a real little kid telling the story, and it didn't make sense to me. When you put it that way, it makes more sense.
Oh yeah.
But again, I mean, like, I think a major problem with that is, though, that if it has to create a point of speculation, then it wasn't written well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, take this into contrast with another story that goes with the whole flashback aspect and does it perfectly. Pen Pal.
Pen Pal? Oh, yeah, where it does a... Well, even when in Pen Pal, when it does a flashback, you know it's from him as an adult telling the story. You could tell that because of the introduction that that the author gives in Pen Pal. But with
Did you ever read the published version?
yes, I did actually. I have a copy sitting right in front of me.
Oh.
I love the book Pen Pal though. Pen Pal was an amazingly well written story, amazingly well written novel. That's something that everybody really should pick up if they like novels.
Oh yes, we are now advertising books.
That's a quick plug for Pen Pal, even though I
yes.
have no involvement with it, but it's a plug for Pen Pal. But
Go read the book.
With Jeff the Killer though, like it's almost impossible to compare like Jeff and Pen Pal because Pen Pal is like obviously well thought out, well edited story. Where Jeff, I'm pretty sure, seems more like a story that's... It was kind of written because somebody was told to write a horror story, pretty much. But I can tell you this. I can see in the writing where exactly it becomes so popular. Because we want to talk about like the impact that it creates on the community because it's an insanely popular story.
Oh.
Probably, I would say it's the most popular creepypasta that there
I would say it was the second most.
What would you say?
Or at least the second most character.
The second most well-known character, you'd say.
Oh, yes. Slenderman, people are sending each other Slender now as the introduction to this community, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Yeah, but okay, I'll give you that. I'll tell you this. It's the most well-known story. Not necessarily the most well-known character, but it is the most well-known story.
With Ben Drown coming in a close second.
Yeah. And I think it's because of this reason. At least this is what my experience has been with a lot of different stories in the community. A lot of the community is between the age of 12, 17, all in that teenage years. And Jeff the Killer speaks to this one part of revenge that they all want to have, where he encounters a bully. He stands up for his family against this bully. And then when the bully finally pushes him like to this edge to the point where he can't come back, he becomes not just crazy and self-destructive, but he almost becomes supernaturally powerful once they push him to that edge. And I think that's almost one of those things that, it's a story that's obviously written by a teenager, and it appeals to those same senses as that the teenagers would like. It's almost like... and I would never want to be quoted in saying that Jeff the Killer is like Batman, but it's almost like the story of Batman being told, like...
What's the word? I'm trying to remember. Fuck. It's fantasizing.
Yeah, that's literally it. It becomes like this kind of new fantasy for you where, well, if I get pushed to this one point with a little bit of, this kind of circumstance, I could become Jeff the Killer. In the same sense of, if I was pushed to this one point, I could, become really buffed out and, brooding and vengeful and become Batman. And that's where I think most of the fame from that story comes from, which is, even what you had said earlier before we started recording, why that becomes an introductory story for the Creepypasta community, or people that are trying to get in the Creepypasta community.
I didn't even consider that revenge part. Revenge fantasy, that's what I was earlier.
That's it, revenge fantasy.
But no, you brought up a great point. Do you know when Jeff the Killer came out? Like, the actual story?
I don't know.
Okay. Because it definitely changed the way a lot of creepypastas started to get written, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. And the reason I didn't even think of the revenge thing is that wasn't exactly the trend that this story started. It definitely started the trend of, I guess, character-based creepypasta. The creepypasta isn't about an event or some supernatural force more so than it is based on an actual character. We see this with, I'm trying to think, Tiki Toby.
I think I know what you're
I'm trying to...
Laughing Jack, Puppet Pal, Tiki Toby.
I was trying to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Laughing Jack, yes. But these very one-character-based creepypastas. It's not, don't go to the haunted house. It's more of, don't let the guy from the haunted house come and get you or he's going to murder you and stuff.
No, I follow what you're saying. It's a very much it changed the game a lot where
It did, and do you think it changed it for the better or for the worse? Because I would say that Laughing Jack is a much better version of this type of story.
I yeah, I would agree with you there. Laughing Jack is one of the is a character that I really like, but I'll tell, and I know there's a lot of debate one way for both different sides of this one, that changing really the structure that the creepypastas are introducing pasta monsters. A lot of people feel like it's ruined the subgenre of creepypastas as it is. Because
would kind of agree with that.
well, see, here's my thing.
A little.
I mean, I understand that. I mean, like it introduces to the point where like even Jane the Killer started off as a DeviantArt OC, somebody's DeviantArt OC, and then for the story just became big, and then there was all these other spin-offs of that character. But I mean, if you even want to go into it, Slenderman started off as a somebody's OC from a somethingawful.com contest that they did, and it ended up spinning into an entire mythos where people will completely claim, oh no, this needs to be this used to go all the way back into ancient times, which of course it didn't. It started online, but these are just all the different things that snowballed out. So in a lot of ways, I kind of agree. Like there's a lot of stories you can go through that they're very much Jeff the Killer, where it's just this kid has a problem, and then he ends up getting revenge for it, and then like there's blood and guts, and that's my whole story, and it's poorly written, it's poorly thought out. Which I've even done one of those before. I can't think of the name of it. But it was a very poorly thought out story. It was just very much I'm writing this for the sake of writing it. Yeah. But I feel like those kinds of stories are going to create these new pasta monsters, and when people get interested in those, they're going to do artwork of them, and then comics of them, and it's going to spawn these sequel stories of them that can really kind of bring the characters to life or make them incredible. The guy who...
Damn it, Comic Kid, this is all your fault.
Oh, but I love Comic Kid. She's so fun.
I love her too.
But she, well, not even just Comic Kid's fault. I mean, there's lots of artists who do stuff like this. Bleeding Heart Works did The Puppeteer. And I actually really like The Puppeteer story. But it ended up spawning all this different artwork of The Puppeteer that I absolutely...
I never read The Puppeteer.
You didn't? Yeah, that's one you actually need to check out. Because I have one story of it, but it's a spin-off story on my channel. Dead Josie did the original one. But it's a really good story, and the character is really cool looking, really well thought out character. But the popularity of it's based on the character. It's exactly like Jeff the Killer, like you had said before. It's based around this character more than it is based around an event or based around something horrifying. It's built around to be this one character. But it can spawn off all these amazing sequel stories and all these amazing things. So even if the original story isn't that good, it can create it's an idea that can spur more creativity. And I have to feel the same way about like even other creepypastas that aren't quite so well written or quite so well thought out. It's going to either spur more creativity or the fact that it's spurring more creativity in that writer. They may not be a good writer right now, but giving them time and giving them recognition and encouraging them to continue on is going to make them into a much better writer in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Jeff the Killer, as we talked about before, has definitely become the one creepypasta people now send each other to get into the community. And I don't know exactly what year I got into the community. Jeff the Killer had definitely been written by then. It was popular, but it was nowhere near as popular as it was now. It wasn't even like, it was like the top 10, in the top 10, but it was like a number 10, if not a number 11 for most popular.
Yeah.
This was the time of Happy Appy, Candle Cove, Dead Bart, Squidward Suicide, the time when all these lost episode creepypastas were like the big thing.
Periodical eras, almost, of creepypastas.
Yeah.
I'm not even too sure where exactly Jeff the Killer falls into that.
Well, Jeff the Killer, as we just said, probably started the era of, here's my serial killer, he's the main character, oh no, he's gonna do something.
Well, no. I don't mean like that. I don't mean like that he spawned off all those character stories like we said, but
Like, what time?
yeah, like what time frame it came out with? Because I mean, you just kind of you dated yourself there with Candle Cove, Happy, and things that had come before Jeff the Killer really kind of came out. I'm not even too sure where in the timeline Jeff the Killer falls in, but
I think Jeff the Killer was out by then, but like I said, it was it was well known, but it wasn't the big thing.
Yeah, I getcha.
It was kind of like what Laughing Jack is now.
Well, it grew. I could tell you, like, as soon as it started getting out there, though, it grew insanely fast.
Oh,
it was just one of those moments of as soon as because even when I started doing my channel, and I know I told you this before we started recording,
Yes.
but I did not know what Jeff the Killer was because I got started doing reading stuff on Creepypasta.com. And there were stories up there like The Art of Jacob Emery and Candle Cove and Mr. Widemouth, which you said is one of your first stories.
Oh, that was like one of my first, if not the very first creepypasta I read.
Yeah. Those are the ones that I had saw. And then when I started doing my channel, when it started becoming, or at least getting some amount of feedback, people were saying, you need to start reading Jeff the Killer. And I did, and I hated the story because I thought it was so bad.
It's so bad, though.
I thought it was so, I really did. Like, so much so I didn't even want to post it when it was done. I posted it because people wanted to see it, and it became, like, insanely huge even when
And now it's, like, the one thing you're known for.
Yeah. Not so much of that, but the voice I did for that one was, I thought it was the stupidest thing I could have done also, because most people interpret Jeff to be the Joker, and I kind of thought the same thing, but at the time I couldn't do a Joker voice, so I just did the next best thing that came to mind.
The 12-year-old Joker.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people associate him with, because he has the red smile and the black eyes and stuff. But I couldn't do one, so I just went with what I had. And it was just... I thought it was really bad. But I come to appreciate the character. The only other thing... Okay, let me ask you this. Do you watch a lot of horror movies from the 80s?
Not kind of.
Not kind of? Not really?
I've seen a good amount,
okay.
But I wouldn't say it's like my thing.
Okay. Have you seen Friday the 13th? Either part 1, part 2, part 3, any of them?
I have actually. That is like the one series I have not seen.
You've not seen Nightmare on Elm Street. Have you seen any of those?
No, wait, no. I have seen Friday the 13th. I'm sorry.
No,
it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, you haven't seen Nightmare. Okay. Well, I can work with that. Friday the 13th. Which one did you watch? Do you know?
I can't remember, but are like most of them just kind of the same?
Yeah, they basically are. But let me ask you this then. In Friday the 13th, when you watched any of those from the 80s, would you say that they were good movies? Like those are like movies that you would just sit there and go, this one was robbed of an Oscar when you're watching those? I mean...
I see the point you're making.
Yeah. They're not good. They're not well-made movies. They're not well-directed movies. They're not well-shot movies. And in a lot of cases, they're not even that creative. But the thing is that the characters are still ones that we really hold as a classic horror villain.
Yeah.
And it probably is in a lot of cases. Like in Friday the 13th, they tried their damnedest to make it all about Jason Voorhees, when I mean he's obviously not the main character of the movie, but they made it about him. And that might have been one of the downfalls of the movies, but he still became insanely popular, insanely well-known.
But here's the thing. We're looking at those movies from a 2014 stance.
Yeah.
We've been spoiled with all these CGI, really good big-budget movies. Those movies back then, those were considered good at that point in time. When I say good, I don't mean like superb. I don't mean like groundbreaking. I mean like you see it once and then maybe you'd see it again.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But I'll tell you this one. Friday the 13th, they did a remake of it. That one came out in 2000 and, I want to say 2009, 2010. They did a remake of Friday the 13th with modern-day graphics, modern-day everything, like any kind of practical effect that you could think of that could be done for gore. And the direction style of it, I would actually say it's not a good movie, again, but it's something that really worked for the genre. And I really kind of feel like that kind of re-embodied what it was from the 80s. I know that's probably going to get me a lot of hate for saying that I liked the Friday the 13th remake, but it embodied what it was from the 80s because it was not good, but because it was modern, it could still be scary. It was scary enough that when something happened, you would kind of freak out for a second and then think, oh wait, that was really dumb, but it was still scary enough. You know what I'm saying? And it really still brought back what Jason Voorhees was supposed to be. He was ridiculous and he was stupid, but you were still afraid that these people were gonna die.
I'm going to go back to something I said earlier about how I feel most of the problems for Jeff the Killer are in the beginning half.
Yeah.
I'd say, I don't know, like I said, I forgot completely, like, how long each part of the story is. I'm going to go ahead and say I liked the creepypasta from the point of Jeff being in the hospital onward. I thought that was the only part in the creepypasta that was actually creepy, kind of clever. Okay, the fight scene earlier with the bleach hitting on his face,
yeah.
That was a little clever, but that's not creepy.
Yeah, I get you. No, that's just a problem with him, yeah.
That's one of the big problems with Jeff the Killer.
It's not scary.
So much build-up, and then it does get creepy, but I don't think it's enough. The big line for Jeff the Killer is go to sleep.
Yeah.
Which, I get it. That's his signature thing. Although, in my opinion, the signature line should really be, aren't I pretty, mommy? Because that was the one really big creepy line in that entire creepypasta. That was the one thing that really sent shivers down your spine, not go to sleep. Because this was Jeff when he, I guess, peaked in his insanity.
Yeah. When
it finally came full force. I also like how their first instinct is to just shoot their kid.
Yeah, I noticed. That's another thing about just like not really understanding, I guess, real life or how real life things could be done. That.
Oh, our son's gone insane. Better shoot him.
Kill him. Yeah.
He's dead.
No,
yeah. There's
I could go
one
on
more.
The problems that were. Yeah. I could go on about the problems that there were about building. The inconsistencies with how real life would have gone.
There's one more big thing, bringing this back to the community. Jeff the Killer and fangirls. And I know, yeah, see, I can hear it in your voice. I know so many people hate the people who love Jeff the Killer as much as these fangirls do. And while I'm not really taking sides on this,
yeah.
There's definitely a big, not even just cultural as in creepypasta, I mean cultural as in, like, our entire culture problem with this. And I'm going to make an obscure reference and bring up boy bands for a minute. Boy bands exist as a positive and healthy outlet for young teenage girls to discover their sexuality. That's why so many bands have the cute, sweet guy, the sporty guy, the goth guy, the normal guy. It's a way for girls to experiment and figure out what type of guys they like.
Yeah.
That's why you see dumb fan fiction about Harry Styles and all that stuff. Justin Bieber. Although Justin Bieber. Okay, bringing up Justin Bieber. This is kind of relevant. The same problem with Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber has the same problem that Jeff the Killer does with his fans, and that's that this is not a healthy outlet for sexuality. Because when you look at one of the big criticisms Justin Bieber gets that is totally justified is how he's making teenage girls think that this is acceptable behavior for a boyfriend, that because he's cute and that they like him, that they should allow him to get away with all this illegal and nasty behavior.
Okay.
That's the same problem with the sexualization of Jeff the Killer in the fandom.
No, I'll agree with that, definitely.
All the self-insertion fan fictions where it's clearly written by some 12, 13, 14-year-old girl where they're in a relationship with Jeff the Killer. Jeff the Killer is a murderer. These girls are exploring their sexuality through a murderer. They are fantasizing about being in a romantic relationship with a psychopathic killer. This isn't healthy at all. This is really going to mess people up for life.
Okay. Yeah, I could see
Not for life, but for a good portion of life.
No, because
it's actually very concerning.
In a lot of stuff, like, I will generally say that I'm supportive of any way that anybody wants to be in the fandom. It doesn't really bother me that people want to, fan shippings or things like that. It doesn't bug me. But I will agree with that. The whole thing of, like, well, because I'm who I am, then it will make them not...
I'm going to fix Jeff the Killer.
Right. I could be able to fix him, which is a very unhealthy thought process to have in a relationship at all. So
This could lead to so many abusive relationships down the line. This is very concerning.
Yeah, okay. I can agree with that. But that's also why I kind of feel like there's a certain amount of maturity that comes along with, when you're getting involved in, when you're trying to get involved with horror things. That's the whole reason why there's, horror movies are generally not made anything available for teenagers, and there's also a certain amount of self-responsibility that needs to come into, that comes into your own understanding of things, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I agree that I agree that it's unhealthy for you to start eating paper.
Yeah.
But I may put into a movie that somebody eats paper, but that's not me encouraging you to eat paper. I would at no point tell you that eating paper is going to be a healthy choice for you. And the fact is that, especially when it comes down to horror, the choice is supposed to be evident that this is not good for you. The fact that...
the problem is, the perspective in a lot of these fan fictions is that this is positive.
Right.
The girl gets into Jeff the Killer's life, and he's still all moody and goth, but he loves her, and they have sex, and they're happy, and she does this in very healthy relationship, even though Jeff is still an asshole, and he still murders people.
And I mean...
But she loves him, and she's going to fix him, and then she doesn't, but they're still together, and she accepts him for who he is.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good way to kind of come around this, but I don't really think there is.
No, it's just bad.
Yeah, with Jeff the Killer there, it's just, it is what it is with that.
These are not mature people writing these fan fictions. These are people who probably haven't even had their first relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's...
And this is a very bad way to get...
It's a bad way of expressing it, yeah. But I mean, like, at the same way, I kind of feel like there's no wrong way to really kind of, to really kind of be in a fandom. It may be kind of a bad lead up, but it's not any more damaging than say the Twilight books have been on.
The Twilight books have been incredibly damaging.
I know, but the fact of the matter is that.
I know, but you're saying this like it's a good thing.
I'm not saying it's a good thing. No.
Not
I'm
a
just
good
saying
thing,
that
but
there's
a
not a
least
way around
less
it.
bad
No.
thing. Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's a good thing at all. What I'm saying is that there's no porn at a young age definitely could be damaging, but it could be damaging to a child to see, but that doesn't mean that you put away your computer and you put away your television to make sure that they have no exposure to any form of media because it could expose them to violence or because it could expose them to porn. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I don't think it makes sense in this context.
It does in this sense of you can't release a personal responsibility based on the fact that it could be taken a wrong way. Like that's exactly where this should have been was it should rely on a personal responsibility to realize that certain things aren't going to be healthy for you. Exactly what I just said a second ago of if somebody tells you that like I eat paper, that doesn't justify you to say, okay, then I should start eating paper.
I know, but these are 12-year-old girls, and the problem is, like, when a kid sees violence or porn for the first time, they usually have even if they're mentally scarred, there's usually someone there who can either explain it to them or try and comfort them. These are teenage girls in a very seclusive environment because most of the rest of the fandom doesn't want anything to do with these weird fan fictions where Jeff is totally a furry and wants to be some 12-year-old's boyfriend.
Right.
Because these are weird and a little pedophilic. So people tend to stay away from these. So the only people who are reading them are now other 12-year-olds. So now you have a bunch of really dumb 12-year-olds that don't understand what a healthy relationship is, influencing each other while writing stories where they're in a happy relationship with someone who would never be a healthy romantic partner. And are perceiving and are teaching each other that this is a good thing, that this is a positive thing, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Okay, well, in that case, let me ask you this. Based entirely upon what you've just said, is that by fault of the story, or is that by fault of the click?
By fault of the click. I'm not blaming the story for these for these really bad fan fictions. No, I don't think the author at any point in time while writing this is saying, yeah, 12-year-old girls are going to write weird fan fictions about this. It's going to be great. They're all going to have their sexualities messed up. They're all going to get into abusive relationships later on in life. Yeah.
No, I follow what you're saying, and really I'm more debating with you at this point for the sake of debating it. But because I completely understand, and I agree with what you're saying, that it's not going to be a healthy... it's in no way going to be a way to explain, yeah, this is going to be healthy for somebody to follow this path and go through that belief that that love has the ability to change somebody from being destructive either outwardly or inwardly.
Or that's even okay to be in a relationship with someone like this. Like, the big criticism against Twilight is that when you look at the relationship between Bella and Edward, they actually meet the criteria for an abusive relationship.
Right, and I've read the articles about such things, but the fact is that Edward was outwardly and actually internally harmful in that relationship, and nonetheless she's still stuck with him.
And the problem is girls are looking at this and saying, I want a boyfriend exactly like
right.
Edward, who's not going to let me talk to anyone, who's going to follow me 24/7. Yeah, no downsides.
Yeah, that's not a good thing to do. And it's the same case with this. You don't want to you don't want to think that it's okay to be in a relationship with somebody who is in Jeffrey's case would be outwardly destructive towards anybody outside of the relationship, and then in most cases, or at least the fan fictions I've read, it's always a matter of, well, at least he doesn't hurt me, or well, if I love him enough, then he can stop being so murderous. It's not a good thing to do. It's not a good idea.
Or he's a murderer and that's really hot. And some of them. I've read some where, like, that's just seen as a pro to the relationship.
Right. And I mean, like, there's a certain difference between some things. Like, I wouldn't say that they're, like, let's say, there's the whole thing that's always come across, which is having the bad boy fantasy for young girls. There's nothing wrong with the bad boy fantasy. because the fantasy is that this person could be cool and slightly, and break the rules and do things like that. And that's a personality trait you can have without being destructive towards people or anyone in the relationship. The problem is when you just completely go completely dark side with it, I guess, and then you want to have that person who, like I have a bad boy fantasy, and I go with this guy because he constantly steals and he breaks stuff, and that becomes the issue, not really so much the fantasy of it. I mean, there's sometimes where I'll put on like a leather jacket and sunglasses and roll my jeans up over my calves and smoke because I want to be cool, but that doesn't that doesn't mean that I'm going to actually, take a gun and hold up a convenience store. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're like way off topic, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were still talking about Jeff, so I'd consider that on topic. But man, we have taken up a lot of time, so I think we should do our final thoughts.
Okay. Well, Jeff the Killer, I'm still going to stick by. I think was probably a story that could have required a lot better writing. But the premise of the story, I feel that the premise of the story still gives that revenge fantasy that a lot of horror villains and a lot of horror stories, at least in modern day, still try to appeal to. And I still consider it to be a good story.
I still stand by that this is not the best written story. I do have, I think the highest praise I can give it is that it was definitely a game-changing story, as it definitely did change the way Creepypasta was written, whether you take that for the good or for the bad.
Yeah.
The fandom around it is definitely somewhat self-destructive in a very unhealthy way. Hopefully, these people are going to kind of, I guess, mature and grow up past this before things get out of hand, which unfortunately I'm afraid in a lot of situations it will spiral out of control. So if you like the story, that's great. Just understand that it is not healthy to be in a relationship with a serial killer.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll go with that one. I was gonna say I don't think anybody would disagree with you. But in the case that anybody does, yeah, it is unhealthy to be in a relationship with a serial killer. And I'll agree with you that it's self-destructive, but I wouldn't go so far as to say the entire fandom. The fandom I wouldn't think would
hardcore
be any kind
fans.
of, yeah, the shipping fans and things like that. With the misunderstanding of it, yeah.
Insertion. I mean,
Well,
doesn't Comic Hit ship Jeff with Ben, and I'm pretty sure she's not going around digging for her.
okay, fair enough. But I could say like with any amount of understanding to it, then it would not be quite so self-destructive. As long as you have a fair amount of understanding that, bad things are going to remain bad, and that's basically it. Bad things are going to be remaining as such. They're going to be bad. There's not a way to change that with love or any other form. Then I think any form of personal responsibility there to yourself would be able to prevail through. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back for another episode with you on another Creepypasta review.
All right. Next time, how about we do Mr. Widemouth? I mean, that also kind of changed some stuff up. Actually, how about next time we just do Small Dog? I think that was the more influential of the, what I'm going to call, pasta creatures.
I'm down.
Story type. Okay, well, this has been Mr. Creepypasta and Fargosis16, and we are signing out.
See ya.